Well, tonight's guest in the Honky Tonk Time Machine has 5 #1 country hits under his belt, 14 inside the top 10, and over 7 million albums sold. And he is one of my all-time favorites. Gary Allan is with us tonight. Gary, thanks so much for being a part of the show.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Throughout the show, we're going to get to know Gary. We're going to talk about all of his biggest hits. We're also going to talk about and play his new single, which you've been hearing on K103, Waste of a Whiskey Drink. We'll save that for a little bit later on. But for now, let's just start at the beginning, Gary. Anybody who's a Gary Allan fan knows that you were born and raised in Southern California, right?
Yes, sir, out in Orange County.
How far away is that from Bakersfield, California?
2 hours, hour and a half.
Okay, so you know where I'm going with this. Was was the Bakersfield scene like your biggest influence? I mean, it had to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Buck and Merle Haggard and Dwight Yoakam too. That Guitars and Cadillacs record came out in 1986, like right when I was graduating high school, and so that was all that sound was a huge part of my life, and that was back when the Palomino was going off. So there was a couple Hollywood clubs that were had some really good country music in them too.
So you get influence from that perspective, but also you come from a family where music was pretty important too, right?
Absolutely. There was always a PA set up in our living room. My dad played, my brother played. So there was I think that's what I did every day when I got home from school was go through a song book and just learn songs.
So tonight's show is all about you, Gary. We're going to play a ton of your music, but we also want to mix in some of your influence, like maybe a Merle Haggard, Dwight Yoakam. So if I'm picking a song, would Guitars and Cadillacs be the one then I should play? Or
yeah, I would say Guitars and Cadillacs, Dwight. That's just that whole album. It really changed my life. I think that, and then that was right about the time the Highwaymen tour came through, and watching Johnny Cash and Waylon and Willie. It was that was really life changing. That was when watching somebody play with just a guitar. It was very hardcore and cutting, and it wasn't a whole band. It was just a dude and the guitar.
When I was growing up, I only knew really the Nashville sound early on. I didn't get introduced to the Bakersfield sound until much later. But it was so cool to be introduced to it after I'd heard more of the Nashville sound and be like, man, this is just a whole nother avenue of a way country music can sound that I didn't even know about. And then I just fell in love with your music and Dwight's music and everybody else's kind of after the fact.
Yeah, it's definitely got a different twang to it out there. I'm definitely a fan of the West Coast stuff.
How did you go from there to Nashville, Tennessee? Can you take me through how that transition happened for you? I was actually selling cars. I'll go back further than that. I had a construction company. My friend, Byron Hill, got the gig as head of A&R for RCA Records, so I thought I had a record deal. Sold my company. Byron got fired. I was selling cars at a Dodge dealership, sold a lady a truck, and she came in a little bit later to get it washed, and somebody was listening to my demo in that truck, and it was an old song by, who was it? If I Was a Drinking Man was the name of the song. Neil McCoy. Okay.
Had it. But anyway, I sang the demo to that, and she came in going, "Who's on this demo?" And I go, "Oh, that's mine." And she said, "Well, who's messing up your song on the radio?" And I kind of laughed and said, "Well, that's a songwriting demo, and usually you like whoever you like first, And anyway, I told her my whole story, and she said, "Well, what's stopping you?" And I said, "Well, my next step was probably to go to Nashville and make a demo there." And anyway, she goes, "What do you think that's going to cost?" So I go, "I don't know, $10,000-$12,000." And she wrote me a check for $12,000, and I flew to Nashville, made a demo, and was in a bidding war within like 5 or 6 months, and ended up on Decca Records.
And eventually, you were able to pay her back.
Yeah, it was all just so random. In hindsight,
you get there, you sign your record deal, and you put out your first single there in 1996, Her Man, which to this day is one of my favorite songs of yours. I didn't know until I watched your Facebook video, the Gary Allan Rewind, that Waylon Jennings did that song first. I had no idea.
Yeah. In fact, I remember after I had released it, I heard his version, and it was really hard for me to get that out of my head and not sing it like Waylon Jennings, because he so has a, I'm going to change my way. It's very Waylonish.
No doubt. I mean, I went back and listened after the fact, and he's definitely full Waylon on it. So how did that song get introduced to you then?
Yeah, Kent Robbins the guy that wrote it, he's the one that pitched it, and I think he just revamped it and pitched it because I didn't know it was a Waylon song until after I'd already recorded it, and I believe until it was released. Because I don't know if I would have did it as my first song if I would have realized it was a cover.
Ended up being huge for you. I mean, a top 10 single, and you were, on the scene. What was that time like? You have your first song out on radio, and things seem to be going well.
Super exciting. I can remember hearing that at my parents' house in the garage on the radio, and just giant in life, thinking, oh my gosh, you've worked your whole life to do something like this, and you're going to get a swing at it.
A few more songs from that first album, Used Heart for Sale, come out. They're all right around that top 40 range. But your next big hit was It Would Be You, which was the title track to your sophomore album. I probably heard it before I heard Her Man. That was the song that kind of turned me on to your music. I absolutely loved It Would Be You.
Yeah, great song. You know what? I might be wrong, but I think that's a Kent Robbins song, too. Same songwriter. He also wrote Every Light in the House Is On. Great writer.
What I'll say about that song and several of your songs is the amazing use of similes and metaphors or analogies. I mean, all songs have these, but yours seem to just knock them out of the park. Really deep, good stuff. I'm going to throw some similes and metaphors at you from some of your biggest hits. Burns as slow as whiskey through an empty aching soul.
Yeah.
The night is like a dagger, long and cold and sharp. And then your love is like a deep, dark river pulling me out to sea.
Yeah.
And another one is I'll fill those canyons in your soul like a river lead you home. That's just a few. Your songs are full of these things.
Yeah, I'm a lyric guy.
You just fortunate to have good writers? I mean, how are you finding these things?
I don't know. I think that I'm really not a beat guy. It's all about the words to me. So, yeah, I get lost in songs, and if they don't make you laugh, make you cry, piss you off, then yeah, you're just adding to the fluff. So, they all got to mean something.
Yeah, and that's why It Would Be You was kind of the first one of those. It's like, man, this guy's lyrics are just incredible. But that leads me to the next song, and it is my favorite song of yours, and that's Smoke Rings in the Dark from 1999. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that seemed to be the song that kind of helped your career take off. Like, it seemed like everybody started taking a notice of Gary Allan when Smoke Rings in the Dark came out.
Yeah, that was huge for me. We did that with Tony Brown and Mark Wright. And in fact, the single that we have out right now, I put that exact same crew together. Same band, same producers. And my thought process was this 90s sound is kind of coming back. And I thought, hell, that's what I do. So I put the exact crew together and those guys. And that's where Waste of a Whiskey Drink came from.
Yeah, and that's kind of the theme of this show. That's why we started this show, kind of bringing that 90s sound back as well, so it all kind of ties in. So when you hear Smoke Rings in the Dark, do you know right away that this is going to be a Gary Allan song? Was it the lyrics that drew you to it?
It was that, and oddly enough, the tone of it. The Rivers Rutherford wrote that, and I believe Mark Wright told him that he wanted something that Glenn Frey would sing. That was the direction. And he came back with that song, which I thought was a pretty cool story.
The line about the whiskey burning through an empty aching soul, the imagery of it, it reminds me of the scene in the movie Pirates of the Caribbean where the pirate drinks the whiskey and you see it kind of leaking through his skeleton down his body. But for me, I don't know, it just takes me there. But that's what you kind of want in a song. You want that imagery to take your listener, just on this journey with them, and you accomplished it.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, you definitely want every line to paint pictures.
I want to talk to you about a song that I feel is one of your best, but might have been underrated, especially when you look on the chart. Loving You Against My Will from 2000 is another one with great imagery, great tone. But it was somewhere around a top 30 hit for you, so it wasn't one of your biggest hits. But I want to know where it ranks for you, because it's always been one of my favorites.
Me too, and I keep trying to put it back in the show. And it kind of lays there in the show too, even when we do it in sound check. So, or you know what I mean? When we rehearse and we try to put it back in, I always end up taking it back out. You know what? I couldn't put my finger on why it didn't get magic for everybody else, but I love that song too.
Fortunately for you, there was still plenty of magic to be had. Right Where I Need to Be was your next single, and that one did take off, top 5.
Truly, that's like a highlight of our show. Still, when I see other bands in bars, I hear that song a lot. Great song. And
I'm skipping over some songs because we don't have time to talk about all of them. But the next one I do want to talk about was The One, which was also from that All Right Guy album. And I just learned in your Gary Allan Rewind, too, that you actually recorded that and didn't really expect anybody to hear it and didn't expect much of it, but ended up being one of your biggest hits.
Yeah, we were playing with loops, those drum loops, and that was back before they were cool, I guess. And I don't know, I thought it was just a little too weird and repetitive and poppy, and I didn't expect anybody really to hear it. And then when they heard it, everybody gravitated towards that one, and I was okay, we'll go around with that. I always want whatever they think they can make fly. You know what I mean? Because I love them all.